Good evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Wednesday, June 26, 2019 is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will the secretary please note the roll?
Commissioner Ellison is here. Commissioner Maloney is here. Commissioner Steiner is here. Commissioner Clymer is here. Vice Chairman Barnes is here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we need a vote to excuse those members not in attendance. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we excuse Chairman Patrick Bray and Commissioner Josh Key.
Second.
I second.
It's been properly moved. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Very good. Item number 1 is to approve the draft minutes of the previous Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there any discussion on the last minutes? Nope. Can I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Commissioner, I move that we do approve the last minutes. Second.
It's been properly moved. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Now is the time for any citizens who would like to address the commission on any non-agenda item. Is anyone here? One day, someone is going to come forward. This is 6 years. No one has ever asked to speak on a non-agenda item. I'm going to put a ringer in the crowd one day, just so we can say that's up. Okay, very good. Moving on to the next item. Before we get well, let me back up. First of all, this is a opportunity for commission members to disclose any ex parte communications with any agenda items. Does anyone have any ex parte communication to disclose? No, we don't. Very good. Moving on to old business. We have no old business. So we will move on to the first item. So now I will take this opportunity before we start this item. As a public discussion agenda item, anyone in the crowd who wants to speak on this item, please fill out a speaker card. You can get one up here at the desk. I have 2 speaker cards so far, so if there's anyone else who plans on speaking, or if you decide you want to speak in the middle, you can still come up and get a speaker card and speak. The commission will listen to comments. We will respond to criticism. We can request that staff investigate items further. We can request that items be scheduled on a future agenda. If you do speak, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. We have a yellow and green. Is there a red light too? Yep. Yes. Yellow, green, red to let you know when it hits yellow. It means you have 20 seconds left. And just a reminder for the rest of those attending to maintain proper decorum. Please don't clap or yell. If you need to speak, please step outside during the process. And let me also take this opportunity to explain to anyone who is not familiar with the Planning Commission. Planning Commission is an advisory commission. We review these items and we make a recommendation to City Council. City Council makes the final decision. Also, this is a volunteer commission. So any of you who reside in Goodyear can also serve on this commission. You can fill out a form on the city website, I believe, to say that you're interested in this or many other committees and commissions that you can serve on if you wish. And with that, that's the end of my commercial, and Katie will begin.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interject for just 1 second. For the benefit of the commission and those who may be watching and our friends and colleagues and interested citizens in the audience, As you well know, typically we have 7 on the commission, and tonight we have 5, so we still have a quorum, but it does take 4 votes to pass something. So I just want to make sure it takes 4 of vote, not pass, excuse me, but to have a recommendation to council. So it does take 4 affirmative votes to have a recommendation of approval. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, members of the Commission. I will try not to repeat too much of the information we just went through. Thank you. At the work session, but we are discussing the PAD zoning request for this Goodyear Civic Square property. It is 104 acres located north of McDowell Road along the Bullard Wash. The current zoning of the property is planned area development, the Goodyear Planned Regional Center. It was originally zoned in 2000 and 2001. The yellow outline shows the entire area that's part of the Goodyear Planned Regional Center zoning. The red outline is the 104 acres which we're discussing tonight. The PAD, this is the land use plan that was in the original 2000-2001 PAD. It includes a mix of uses and includes that graduated density concept we discussed at the work session, having the single-family residential to the more north part of the property near the existing single-family to the north, and then getting denser as it gets closer to the commercial uses. This is what the land use plan looks like today. As you can tell, there were some changes to the roadways. There have been some amendments over the years to the PAD zoning. The PAD zoning, it does designate most of the property as mixed-use commercial, but the PAD does include a specific permitted use list and development regulations that are in the PAD itself. When we were first approached to consider rezoning the property, we did see it as an opportunity, and I just wanted to point out that since we are going through a rezoning, it was zoned almost 20 years ago, and there are a lot of uses that are listed that, you know, maybe we wouldn't want to see so close to some of the residential uses that exist there today. Just as an example, automotive sales, car washes, I'm not sure what custom manufacturing is, but those are permitted uses. And then there's additional uses that are permitted by use permit. So this was an opportunity to look at those permitted uses and see what does make sense adjacent to the existing residential neighborhoods, besides going through the zoning for the Goodyear Civic Square. The general plan does designate it as business and commerce. Residential uses are permitted as long as they're 12 dwelling units per acre or more. And then there is that village center and transit-oriented development overlay as well. And as I said before, that encourages mixed-use development, walkable destination places at this site. Surrounding the property to the north is the Rio Paseo neighborhood, which includes a mix of single-family, court home, townhome, and then there is an apartment complex. The Live Goodyear apartment, which was recently opened, is to the west. There's the Market at Estrella Falls Commercial Center, just on the other side of the Bullard Wash from the site. And then there's additional commercials such as Goodyear Center Point and the Harkins Theater. The proposed area for the rezoning is made up of 3 parcels. Parcel A is known as the Civic Square parcel, is approximately 48 acres. Parcel B is the residential parcel, which is 39 acres, and parcel C is 17 acres and allows either residential or commercial. To drill down into the uses and development standards a little more, at parcel A is kind of divided into 2 areas, the core area, which is the Civic Square itself, and then there's the outside the core area. In the core area, there's a mix of retail, office, entertainment, restaurant uses that are permitted. Residential is permitted, but not on the first floor. And then I mentioned before, there is an extensive prohibited uses. some of the like mini storage, certain auto-oriented uses. There are some, like there could be a car showroom, but not a traditional large car lot. Smoke shops, tattoos, those types of uses are specifically prohibited. In the core area, they can go up to a height of 150 feet. There's also some concepts we don't usually see. There's a height minimum. In the most of the core area, there's a 40-foot height minimum. However, it's 20 feet within 150 feet of 50th Drive. So we went through some of that concept in the work session of that wedding cake concept, so that these buildings along 150th can be a little shorter, and then they get a little taller, and then the City Hall being the tallest. There's also restrictions that the parking structures can't be taller than these office or mixed-use buildings next to them, so that the parking structures are hopefully a little hidden when you're at the Civic Square itself. Also, the PAD sets perimeter setbacks from some of the major roads, such as McDowell, 150th, Monte Vista, but it doesn't have specific building setbacks interior. So that's another little different concept. Christopher in the work session mentioned we're going to be having a streetscape plan that talks about sidewalk widths, making sure we allow for those like outdoor cafes, and that's really going to determine what those interior setbacks are, but the PED just sets the setbacks kind of around the perimeter. In Parcel A, but outside the core area, all the uses that are allowed in the core area are permitted, as well as a few others, including hospitals, trade or professional schools, and then residential on the first floor is permitted in this northeast corner, but single-story residential is not permitted, so it'd have to be multiple story. Again, height 150 feet is permitted, but the minimum for the entire Parcel A outside the core is 20 feet. In Parcel B, single-family and multifamily uses are permitted. There are development standards for the traditional detached homes, green court homes, townhomes. They are similar in nature to the development standards we see for those products in our Goodyear zoning ordinance as well. Oops, the title's wrong, but for Parcel C, those same commercial non-residential uses that are allowed on Parcel A are permitted in Parcel C. Multifamily residential is also permitted on Parcel C, and then urgent care facilities and age-restricted multifamily is also permitted. This parcel has a height limitation of 60 feet with a 25-foot minimum height. So we talked a little bit, when this concept first came to the city, staff was initially concerned, what does it mean to add all this residential to these areas that were going to be commercial areas? What does it mean for the mall site? But at least 142 acres are still preserved for the mall site. So again, this zoning doesn't touch that portion of the site. And that is very consistent with regional shopping centers you see across the valley. That is a large enough site to do something with. Within the Goodyear Planned Regional Center, there's still an additional over 100 acres of general commercial land available for development, plus the commercial acreage that's in the Civic Square itself. Plus, there's a whole lot of surrounding commercial area along I-10 and along Bullard and Estrella Parkway available for development. Certainly, too, one of staff's concern was how do these uses integrate with the existing residential to the north of this property. And you can see here, so the single family in Rio Paseo is located right here. And the area that's just across from the Civic Square site, they're typically about 70-foot wide lots. They're allowed to go 30 feet in height. Two-story homes are existing in that neighborhood. And so across from that parcel is the area that single family is permitted, multifamily is also permitted, and they're restricted to 40 feet in height. Across from Parcel C are the court home product and the triplex product. Those are both 30 feet in height, but they are a little bit more dense of a product. And then across from that is the more dense residential or commercial uses could locate there, and that's permitted to be 60 feet in height. There it goes. So I did want to share with you, we do have a preliminary plat in for review for the residential parcel. Now, the zoning does not include this, so they're not stipulated to develop exactly to this development plan, but we thought it was important to share with you some of the thoughts and plans for the residential parcel that we know of. So you'll be seeing the preliminary plat for this development at a future commission meeting. But we've worked very closely with the applicant on this plan. And one thing that's important to remember again is that the general plan states a minimum density that should be in this area because it's designated as business and commerce. So staff actually pushed the applicant to get more density in this area to help the success of the commercial area. But there are, as you can see, this yellow are traditional single-family detached lots. So those would be located across from the existing single-family lots in Rio Paseo, so that there's a little bit more of a gradual transition in density and use types. The brown are proposed to be townhomes and green court home type development, so just a little bit more dense, somewhat similar to the density levels that are in the east portion of Rio Paseo. We also have had pre-application meetings with a multifamily developer looking at Parcel C. And we've worked with them too to try and bring those buildings closer to the street so that there's more of a walkable urban feel, so that if you live in some of those neighborhoods to the north, it's more of a pleasant experience if you want to walk down to the Civic Square. And they've worked with us a lot to rearrange their plans so that it could fit the design standards for the Civic Square. And then this is a conceptual elevation. And again, these aren't tied to the zoning, but we wanted to share what we're seeing is possibly going to develop on these parcels. So that's a traditional apartment style development. So as we always do with our zoning reviews, there's a list of criteria in the zoning ordinance that staff is supposed to use to evaluate our zoning proposals, which are listed here, and we go through those in depth in our staff reports to you. So hopefully you've read that, but staff has gone through these items and found that this zoning proposal meets all of the review criteria as stated in the zoning ordinance. We did have a neighborhood meeting on June 5th. There were approximately 14 residents. Generally, there was support for the civic and commercial uses, but there was opposition noted to the multifamily. What we heard was that there was a concern that there'd be increased crime and traffic, and that there'd be potential impacts to the schools and amenities with bringing more people in, that amenities such as parks and restaurants would become more overcrowded. However, as I stated in the previous slide, staff has found that this proposal is consistent with the general plan, not only in the land use plan, but as we said in the work session, and also in the goals and objectives to create unique places, expand our parks, and create gathering places. It meets the zoning ordinance review criteria, and so staff recommends approval. I do want to note that staff does want to recommend approval with the addition of 2 additional stipulations. The first one being that there shall be no preliminary plat approvals on all or portions of parcels A, B, and C approved by the City Council until the development agreement is approved by City Council. The second stipulation being there shall not be any site plans administratively approved by staff on any portion of A, B, or C prior to the development agreement being approved by council. And basically, there is a development agreement that staff and the applicant have been working through. We thought we were going to be able to complete it in time for the city council meeting, and we just haven't been able to complete it. So we're just putting those stipulations in to note that before we get further along in the process, the development agreement needs to be executed. We don't anticipate this is going to slow down the development. As I said, there are already applications in. We're reviewing them. We just won't schedule them for council until we get the development agreement completed. That concludes my presentation, so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but I also know the applicant is here.
Vice Chairman, if you would please open the public hearing formally.
Yeah, I thought about that. I officially open the public hearing. Thank you, Katie. Do we have any questions for Ms. Wilkin? Any questions on this?
Katie, in parcel A, you have an east section at the north. Yes. There you go. You have an A section, excuse me, in the northeast corner, and you have an A section in the northwest corner. Now you have commercial in the northwest and then residential commercial in the northeast. What is the reasoning behind that? Would it not be better to put all commercial in the northeast corner across from the mall?
Thank you, Vice Chairman Barnes, Commissioner Steiner. So in the permitted use list, residential is permitted in parcel A. However, this is an exhibit from the PAD, and what we were trying to document with this exhibit is that if there was solely residential, not mixed-use buildings, but buildings that were completely residential, those would only be permitted in this northeast corner. Mixed-use buildings could locate in the northwest and the south. The reason being, this south parcel being located on McDowell, having that visibility is prime for almost more traditional commercial development that we see. And this northwest commercial, we're really hoping to get some more office users. With the amenity of the Bullard Wash, there's some great views of the mountains because the Bullard Wash preserves some of those views. So we're really hoping we can attract some of those Class A office users in that space. And so the northeast corner with the residential to the north and northwest of that, northeast of that, would make sense if it went residential or commercial.
Okay, I do have a second question. Parcel C, that land is owned by whom?
I believe it's owned by Globe. Right.
Globe? Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question for Katie? Okay, Brian.
So one other question regarding the northeast and northwest of A. I believe, wasn't there talk about there being residential on top of office spaces in, or is that both or just in the northeast?
Mixed use can go anywhere.
Okay.
What it's just trying to say, if there were buildings that was completely residential, so I don't want to say more traditional apartments. We don't foresee like a garden style apartment complex being developed there. But if there were apartment buildings that were solely residential, those would be most appropriate in that northeast section.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I do have one question. Can you go back to parcel B with the detail that showed that one right there. So one of the options. So I understand we have single family detached on the north end, and then the density increases as you get closer to the city center, which makes a lot of sense. But does what we're doing tonight ensure that the north part will be single family? To make sure that somebody doesn't put a high density residential throughout this entire thing?
Thank you. The PAD does not require that north part to be single family. So the zoning would allow for a variety of residential uses.
Okay. I'm wondering if if it would be wise to make it so. But I'm getting ahead of myself because that's the part where we discussed this between the commission members. But
Mr. Chairman, if I may, as Katie pointed out, we do have plats in process for this property as well. If it is something that the commission felt like needed to have some greater certainty, it's certainly within your purview to stip it to be substantially similar with this, with the plats that are currently in. And if I can also just elaborate 1 second, if I may, the yellow conventional single family on the north and the brown that's further south, the area that goes from Court Home to essentially an attached product that's parallel to Monte Vista. And we have worked with the developer of this parcel, which is BB Living, to sort of flip that inside out, if you will. You'll see, I'm going to come to the podium to use the. So you'll see this is essentially an interior alley, if you will. And so these units actually will face, it won't be the back, it'll face Monte Vista, which helps, again, to create that sort of urban walkable type experience. Instead of having just walls, it'll be the front of those buildings. Now, up here where the yellow is, you'll notice that there is no access to Virginia or Encanto at this location. That did come up in our neighborhood meeting, but there is no ingress and egress there. The ingress and egress for the entire project, there's one here off of 150th, and then the secondary one, or the other primary one, if you will, is off of Monte Vista. There will be these homes here will face inside just like a conventional subdivision, and so the rear wall of those are along 150th and then that Virginia Encanto on the north. We've been working with the developer. There'll be heightened landscape requirements and things, or they're going to install heightened landscape there to really not have just a wall in the sidewalk. As you can see, it's got some movement to it, and that hard corner is stormwater, so it'll feel open as opposed to closed off. So we're really grateful for them working with us to achieve that. Not to belabor this slide too much longer, but the other thing is we have the wash that runs right here. That's a great city amenity, used pretty frequently. And so not having residences backed up to the wash the entire time to create this canyon effect was really important. And we were very pleased that the developer worked with us to create this feeling of openness. So you can see that there is, my mouse, here it is. So all of this is open, and these fences here likely have view fencing on the top, so it wouldn't be just a 6 or so foot block wall. So it'd be a little bit shorter with some view fencing on top. Again, really just trying to, if you will, embrace the amenity that is the Bullard Wash, and provide the opportunity for some synergy between this neighborhood and the wash, not to mention to the south on the Civic Square properties. So I hope that answered a little bit more questions for you.
I guess I do have a question. Does staff have any concern that the yellow area, which is the single-family housing, would become apartment or more densely populated housing?
I'll say at this point in time, we do not have that concern. We have plats in. So there has been a significant, what that means for you all is that there's been a significant investment from the developer and in order to advance the construction of the project and so forth. So I'll also defer, and maybe Mr. Bull can allude to the progress of this parcel, if you will, when he comes up to, I'm sure, address the commission. He probably has a little bit more detail than I do, but at this point in time, we don't have any reservations that it would be anything different than what you're seeing.
So, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, this plat is going to come before the commission, so we would get a chance to see this layout before we recommended approval or denial.
Of this plat, yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chairman. And it would also, preliminary plats also go to the city council.
Yeah. So if somebody came in with just solid high density and we didn't think that was a good idea, we would have the opportunity to recommend that not be approved. Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions for staff? All right, very good. Would the applicant like to speak? Mr. Bull, how are you?
Good, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed Bull, 702 East Osborne. I will, if you allow, keep my remarks brief, but I'll make a full presentation if you need it or want it. As you know, I'm here on behalf of Globe. You, during the study session, met both George Getz and Mike Olson. I'm also here with BB Living, who's working with Globe on Parcel B, and with Greenlight, who's working with Globe on about half of Parcel C. You've had a full presentation both at the study session and then here during your hearing tonight. I agree with everything that Katie and Christopher and others said, both during the study session and here tonight. You also have a very thorough written staff report that recommends approval subject to stipulations which are acceptable to us. If you want more details on anything, I will be happy to provide it. If you don't, and if you're comfortable, you don't need me to be singing to the choir. I certainly don't want to skip over anything that's important to you, and that I think there's just tremendous excitement centered around the opportunity for Goodyear Civic Square. Julie or others who were talking about the effort that's been undertaken by management and staff and Globe and various people on their team. It's been a hand and glove effort for months and months now. That's very much been open and productive. A part of that discussion as well is the importance, as Katie pointed out, of using the graduated density concept or transition in order to make this truly a mixed-use development that provides not only additional population proximate to some of the offices and other commercial uses, but additional activity as well. Because office only can tend to become 8 to 5 or 7:30 to 6 or whatever it may be Monday through Friday. Mixed use in an environment like this, as Christopher discussed, I believe during the work session, is very important to have a true mixed use environment. We are delighted with staff's recommendation for approval. We have no disagreement with any of the stipulations. If you want more from me now, please say so, and we can go back through Katie's PowerPoint or our own PowerPoint if you want. Otherwise, if I may, if you're comfortable, I'd like to take a seat and reserve the balance of my time, if I may, for rebuttal if it's needed.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for the applicant? No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the time for the public to speak. I have one speaker card. I will start with Mark Pelletier. Did I get that right? Pelletier.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Mark Pelletier, 15742 West Fairmount here in Goodyear. 2 points. One, I realize it's probably a little out of the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but for the long-term benefit of the commission and staff, there was very marginal mention of library in the work session discussion of what is planned for the Civic Center. And I just feel it is absolutely essential that a class library be part of phase one. It's not clear to me whether it is or isn't, but if we want to get people into the new Civic Center, how many of us go to City Hall? How many of us go to the library? I think it's crucial, and I hope it's certainly hope it's part of phase one. As long as I'm here, just share one other observation I have. Something I'm a little disturbed of and seeing here in what was in Parcel B and in a lot of the developments which are recently being approved in Goodyear. The Avila properties, the Grayson properties, the properties on Palm Valley golf courses along McDowell. Is that Goodyear or is that Avondale? Anyway, I see a lot of insular developments with very little road access to the community. This one here, you've got a main entrance off 150th and another entrance off Monte Vista. I'm sure the fire department's looking at these things, but I just see a lot of very contained developments with very little access. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the only speaker card I have. Do we have anyone else from the public who wishes to speak? Anybody at all? Very good. Mr. Bull, did you have something else to add at the end? Okay.
Very briefly, it's my understanding, to be corrected by staff if I'm wrong, that the library is a part of phase one. It's also, we don't have a site plan up there, but part of the discussions with staff has been to provide entrances to the commercial and to the residential components in those locations which strike the balance between traffic flow and safe ingress and egress. Also, importantly, with staff, they wanted us to make sure that the residential component in parcel B would provide not only vehicular connections between A and B, but the opportunity for pedestrian connection between A and B as well. So we, in striking that balance between moving cars and getting them in and out safely, believe that we've addressed the concern that was mentioned.
Thank you very much.
We request your approval.
Okay. Katie?
If you don't mind my adding to it, because I just want to say I couldn't agree with Mr. Pelletier's comments regarding the library more, and we really didn't highlight it as much in the work session. But I do think that including the library in City Hall is a unique aspect to our project that many of the other cities haven't done. And in the original City Hall site plan that we had in 2009, we actually had an empty floor planned for future growth, because we know we're a young city and we're going to grow a lot, and our City Hall will probably have new growth needs. And it was just a really exciting opportunity to not have an empty floor, but actually use it for a purpose such as our library, so that we're using our resources wisely, as well as providing more library space to our community, as well as creating a place to bring people in who will hopefully want to grab lunch, want to grab a cup of coffee, and keep the center active. So that was a very deliberate part of our plan, and we're really excited about it. There's just so much to talk about that we didn't highlight it quite as much, but absolutely. The library, including space for, classes and events and community room space, is definitely a part of the plan.
Very good, thank you. With that, I will close the public hearing and open it up to this commission for discussion. Are there any comments from commissioners?
I'll tell you, I'm really excited about this. I think this is going to be extremely beneficial to Goodyear. If you've ever been up to Kierland Commons, which I'm sure everybody has, retail all along the first floor, all the way around, and you do have residential living above, but you have restaurants, you have bars, you have places for people to congregate. But this is even more than that, because you're going to have a center square where people can actually meet each other and then shop. Now, you're also going to feed off of Harkins across the way and the mall when that gets there. The one concern I have about all that is to be sure that people have access from the east side of 150th to the west side of 150th and vice versa. Because if you're going to be drawing all that traffic in and feeding off each other, you're going to need to be sure that you have that.
Thank you. Do we have any other discussion? No. I'll just go on record as saying, since I've studied town centers from graduate school and work with them in my career, and I think this one has all the right components. There have been other attempts that have been mildly successful or successful and not successful, and I think we are somewhat lucky in the way this is all working out. This could be not a test case, but an example, I think, that other cities look at as to how you make this city center work and having all the right components. The small retail is always the hardest thing to make successful, and the only way to do it is to get lots of eyeballs there. So with the restaurants, with the theater across the way, with Bullard Wash, I think we may have hit the jackpot on this one. All right. with that.
I got one more thing, just one quick question.
You're just trying to
What-
one-up me.
When you say entertainment, can you define that, or what is in your mindset as what that would be?
So that's Mr.
I mean,
Mr.
are
Vice
we
Chairman.
looking at something like a Scottsdale Center for Performing Arts?
So, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioner Steiner, thank you for the question. Entertainment really encompasses a lot of different things. And this Civic Square component, at least right around, we're not anticipating like entertainment like a bowling alley or a skating rink or laser tag or anything of that nature. That's kind of too big a scale. But really entertainment places where you could go, maybe there's live music, other types of venues where you could have unique things to drink and eat, things of that nature. So kind of experiential entertainment, entertainment by experience, as I think is a good way of defining it.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any more comments, discussion? Very well, I will entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chairman, before a motion, if I may, just interject one more time.
Yes.
If the commission so chooses to recommend approval of this to council tonight, we would encourage you to include in that the two additional stipulations that Ms. Wilkin read to you on the record.
Very good. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve, I hope I have the right number here, 2019-6698WS.
Second.
Would you like to add the stipulations provided by staff?
And the stipulations provided by staff.
Do we still have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. We will move on to the next item for tonight, which is, hold on, staff communications.
Mr. Chairman, just real briefly, Katie and I met with Chairman Barnes, I think it was last week or the week before, just to talk about our upcoming training. So we're going to be scheduling that for a special meeting in September, likely toward the end of the month. So we'll be on the lookout for that. We'll be working to get that agenda finalized, the date finalized, and so on and so forth. And that would be a work session.
Thank you very much.
I just want to, add one thing, just to remind everyone that, the next meeting is our August meeting, and it's a week earlier than normal. It's August 7th. It's on the calendars we've provided you, but it's the first Wednesday of the month rather than the second Wednesday of the month.
And you'll be getting reminders from Melissa. So just a helpful reminders, right? Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
I don't have anything else. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.